So hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You're here either listening or watching, and we so appreciate your attendance today. I'm here with a guest. If you are watching this, you can see he's to my left. I'm going to wait to introduce him because first I want to thank him for submitting an article that really prompts a question today that I want all of you to keep inside of you and to maybe even write down as we go through this process. And the question is it possible? Are there benefits to experiencing trauma? Think about that for a minute. So this article that my guest, François de Neuville, submitted to me points to the adversity hypothesis first. And if you're not familiar with that, what it boils down to is we are required to go through trauma, setbacks, and that type of adversity that we've all experienced in order to grow. And it goes on to say that we're all so saturated in 50 years of literature that points to the negative effects of traumatic experiences. Well, today in the field of positive psychology, there is a growing body of research that I want to share and that my guest fits so brilliantly into this. It's a topic referred to as post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth, let me just grab some water here, really boils down to three things. Number one, finding strengths and abilities through those traumatic experiences, improving good relationships, and finding a positive change in priorities and philosophies. So when I think about this, François, I think about how it distills down to one word for me. And that one word is courage. 2018, François miraculously survived an earthquake and a tsunami in Indonesia. That day, he promised himself to live every single day of his life to the fullest and inspire others to do the same. In this episode, François explains how he found the courage to turn trauma into a superpower and recreate himself anew. François is an ex-platoon leader in the Commando Paratrooper, a double natural disaster survivor, an adventurer, a nomad, and a loving husband. As a certified high-performance coach, he supports entrepreneurs, CEOs, and executives to become high-performance leaders. François, welcome to the show.
Amy, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today.
It is a sincere pleasure, and I'm just blown away by your history of, shall we say, adventure in your life. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I came across a quote from our mentor in high performance who said that adventure is not a value, it's a component in life. And so you kind of used to going out there and exploring, and I love your history. But of course, you're here to share your some of your story about what happened to you and how you moved through that struggle, how you found that opportunity in it, and how you now define success through that. So with that, let's dive in.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of context before this whole thing happened. So when I was 17, I decided to join the military. I had this big dream in mind, like I want to become a platoon leader in the Commando Paratroopers. Now, it took me 7 years to get there. I mean, that was tough. That was a really, really intense and difficult and challenging training. Now, I finally got there and I was so happy. I was so happy because after 7 years of dreaming about it, like, wow, the day I put my green beret on my head, that was like, wow, that was just awesome. And my life was not ordinary. I mean, that was training with the plane, with helicopter, with boats, combat, climbing, all of those things. That was just amazing. I loved it. I loved it. I loved my platoon. I loved my work. But somehow I felt something was missing. And I could not really grasp what was not there. You know, I was happy. But I realized after I was not 100% fulfilled. And since I'm a kid, I want to travel the world. And a day I was just traveling and I met my beautiful wife. And we just the first time we met. And I was just explaining her, like, yeah, I have all this career in front of me. Everything is great. But I still feel like maybe I want to go explore the world. And, you know, when you say that to someone, the typical response is like, come on, just be realistic, right? You have everything set up. You work so hard to get there. It makes no sense to quit everything and do something different, especially if it's traveling. I mean, you need to live, you need to pay the bills, etc. But she did not say that. She said, so great. I would love to go live in Nepal. And that just opened a new opportunity for me, thinking, oh, maybe it's not that crazy. And okay, we married a few years later, and we quit everything. I sold my car, I sold my clothes, my computer, I quit my job, and we went traveling the world. And it was just amazing. But for those years, I was just thinking, okay, what am I all about now? What is my identity? What is my purpose? And when you come across in this personal development field about finding your purpose, it's just such a big thing. And I was so overwhelmed, and it stressed me out a lot, because I was thinking, I don't have any, I don't know. I had no clue. And so I was a bit wondering, exploring things, thinking, what is it going to be my life about? And I felt a bit lost. Now, in 2018, I was in Indonesia for a paragliding competition. And it was a beautiful day. It was the third day of the competition. I just had amazing scores. And I was just in my hotel thinking, let's go out with one of my roommates to grab some dinner in town. And so I was just getting out of the hotel when everything started shaking. And that was insane. The ground was literally making waves. I mean, my rational mind could not understand what was happening, because it was defying the laws of physics. Like, when you see the ground doing like this, like, what the hell? And we fell on the ground and we could not stand up. And then suddenly I heard this deafening noise behind us. And I realized that the whole hotel was collapsing. I was horrified. I was just waving goodbye to the receptionist, and I knew a lot of people were still inside. So with my friend, we tried to get back on our legs and on our feet, and then run back to the hotel, trying to see if we could help anyone. And that moment I saw a little girl. She was trapped in like metallic bars on the 5th floor, and we were on the ground. And I suddenly catch her eyes, and I'm like, she looked so scared and confused, and we had to do something. But the hotel was still collapsing. So it was a really difficult decision, because that would be stupid to die smashed under a big block of concrete and not being able to help anyone by being too impulsive. So we were just looking at her, and we just could not stay there. So we started climbing the debris of the hotel to get to the 5th floor. And then with the help of my friend, we opened the metallic bars. I took her in my arm, and I started climbing down to put her safe, right? I saw at that moment, there were like 2 feet, a lot of blood, and a woman yelling. And it was the mother. She was trapped underneath blocks of concrete. And we're thinking, we need to do something. My friend stayed there, and I went down to put the little girl safe. And in my mind, the safest place was somewhere like there is nothing that can collapse, right? So the beach, our hotel was on the coast. So I climbed down, and then I turned back, and I started running towards the beach with this little girl in my arms. And I saw that in the horizon, this black line. It was moving so fast. I've never seen that before. It was like, oh shit, a tsunami. And early, earthquake, and the chance that this is going to happen. Anyway, I yelled behind, like, take shelter. Where do you want to take shelter? Collapsing buildings or a tsunami? We were just trapped. I saw a tree, and I decided to take my chance. I put the little girl in the tree. I climbed in the tree myself, and then we hold there. And the tsunami was coming. I took my phone, and I was thinking, I'm going to call my wife and say goodbye, because I literally thought I'm not going to make it. Luckily, the phone call never went through, because all the antennas were completely broken and everything was destroyed in the city. So, and I looked at this little girl, and I can see in her eyes this confusion. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, Louis, you liar. It's not going to be okay. There's a tsunami coming on you. You're on the tree. You're just on the front line. And I hold the tree so strong. I hold this little girl in my other arms. And then the tsunami came like 50 meters, 40 meters, and it crashed on everything in front of us. And then suddenly it hit my legs. And I was holding as strong as I could in the street. It was still moving, but we were still there. And the first wave passed. We were in the tree, and I realized, like, I was not dead yet. There was still hope. We stayed in the tree for about 45 minutes. It was getting dark, so we could not see anything anymore. And I could not anticipate the waves. It was really hard. I just wanted to leave this place, because I felt so vulnerable in front of nature. And this little girl, I was all that she had at that moment. So actually, my whole focus was to keep her safe. And it really helped me in that moment to take the good decisions, because it was not about me. And we left the tree. That was horrible. We tried to figure out another shelter. There was a really long story in there. But the moment that we finally, the water went a little bit lower, we could go towards go inland. And that's where I really realized the chaos that it was. Everything was destroyed. There were bodies floating in the water. Buildings were on fire. There was this big orange light illuminating the sky because the city was burning, and it was horrible. It was hell. And I was there, walking, still in the water, with this little girl on my shoulders, and thinking, what now? I was just walking, and suddenly I see a group of survivors, and I start running towards them. And then in the middle of the group, my friend was standing, and I was like, no way, I thought he died, and he did not. And I jumped to him, and we hugged, and he's telling me that the mother of the little girl is still alive. That was so beautiful to be able to tell this girl, like, your mom is there, we're gonna find her. So that was so magical. Now, 4,000 people died that day. A lot of people lost everything: family members, belongings, house, everything. I miraculously survived. I was really lucky, really lucky. My story ended up really well, but that's not the case of everyone. Sorry.
This is, first of all, whew, let's all take a breath.
Yeah.
Hear from your story is that you made a switch in your mind to overcome that feeling, that conflict between, do I run? Do I go after this child? And I think whether we're experiencing a small struggle or something as dramatic as this, I think the feelings are the same. We all have this inner conflict, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree.
That pulls at us and that we can either work with or work against. But I think what I'm hearing from you is, and I've heard your story a little bit on other programs, is that you were following kind of the flow of where your energy was telling you to go. And I think that's where I think sometimes we get into trouble with our struggles and these devastating things around us, because we go into resistance or we do
exactly.
that. So,
yeah, I think we all experience pain in our life, right? It's just inevitable. Just the context is different. And I would say for pain, but for all the other emotions, we just have the whole panel of it with a different context around. And, when I was in that moment, we have those fly, fight, or freeze. You cannot choose. Okay, I was trained in the military that might have helped to make quick decisions and be more in the fight mode. But still, you cannot really choose. Now, I heard recently a fourth dimension to that is like taking care for others. Like that's just a fourth possibility. And that's really where I felt into. And I saw that in other situations when it was like high stake environment, I started really focusing on others. I don't know why. Now, what is quite interesting is that I told this girl later, she was 5 years old, right? So young. She saved my life. Practically, I saved her, but this only happened because she was there and I stayed alive for this reason. That's really interesting, this concept around that. And I really put in that moment all my emotion. I just switched off everything. My mind was I just had her, keep her safe. That was the mission. That was only that. Now, you can only suppress your emotions for so long, right? The day after, everything came out. Because I barely felt anything, because I was so focused on thinking rationally to not let my emotion get in the way and make me take wrong decision or whatever. But after, it really came out. And the weeks following that, I entered this PTSD phase because I lost a lot of friends there. And sadly, my friend who saved the life of the mother of this little girl passed away 3 weeks later in a paragliding crash in India. Now, when I heard that, I was devastated. I was devastated because I lost my trust in life. At the time, I was like, why? Nobody deserves to die in such a way, but it just saved someone a few weeks ago. That's not fair. I was so angry. I was so mad at life, thinking, damn it, screw you. That's not, why do you do that? And I was a bit in this victim role because I could not really make sense of the situation. And I was fighting it, as you said. I was kind of refusing to accept what was. Now, I also was in this really dark place because I was so lucky. I mean, I've been called by the press and media asking me to have the testimonials and everything. People were saying, you're a hero. that just made me sick, because I was like, my story is, I'm really lucky. That's not the case of the 4,000 other people that are there, and then family are devastated and they lost everything. I'm okay. I just like some bruises and scratches, and like physically I was fine. I lost some belonging, but there was nothing compared to those people. And I felt, first of all, it's not fair. I could not find joy because I felt too guilty to like enjoy my status of survivors. I don't know. It's a bit, I was really conflicting in my mind at that time. And I really suppressed this desire to live for weeks. And then when my friend passed away in India after, it took me like a few days, but then I had this big insight that I was still alive. And so I was lucky, and I had to make the most out of it, because that would be unfair to have survived all of that and just live miserably for the rest of my life. So that day, everything switched. I mean, sometimes it can be like that sharp, right? I was depressed and in this really dark place, and I was this victim of the situation. And the day after, I was a survivor. I was like, I'm ready to live. I'm ready to live again and to inspire other people to do the same thing. And that became my mission. And actually, later, that's how coaching came into my path, because it's so deep in me that I want to inspire people to live the best life, because we tend to live with this illusion of time. And that's what I'm writing a book about for the moment, is this idea to postpone our best life for later. Based on what? Seriously. Okay, statistics are saying like your life expectancy maybe like 80 something. Yeah, but we never know. And I love this sentence that shit doesn't only happen to others. That's true. We always feel invincible. Now, maybe some people cannot really relate, like a tsunami, like it's never going to happen to me. What do you think that I thought before? Of course, right? And so this is this issue that we have more and more, like we postpone our best life for later. I'm going to be happy when. And that's something I was also doing before when I was traveling. I was always like, I was traveling around the world thinking, oh, when I'm going to be in Japan, it's going to be amazing. I was in Japan. Oh, the Philippines are going to be great. And then, oh no, Colombia is going to be great. And I was kind of missing on the present moment by always being in the future. And I realized we live in a future that might never exist or never happened. So it's an illusion that we have. And that was also, it took me a few years to put this message together, because we all know that somehow, but do we act upon it?
I love what you're saying. And as I'm thinking back to how you opened the show about being confused, and you even used the word overwhelmed with a purpose. Yeah. And when we think back to that devastating time when you're in the middle of the tsunami, and your story really reveals to us that you, in that moment, created a purpose for yourself to be of service to that child. And so that purpose over time, of course, it really became sort of a negative for you later because you had that survivor's guilt. It didn't really resonate for you for a while. But then what I'm hearing is that you started to redefine that experience, and now came forth this new purpose. And all of that, as I said before, whenever we're moving into that positive growth or that purpose, it requires us to take action on some kind of courage. And that's what I take value in terms of, how you describe this, because it's like I'm hearing the courage that it took, to take those actions. But further than that courage was to kind of package it into this purpose that is now revealing itself as something you can create for others to experience for themselves. And I love that you made the distinction that it doesn't matter if people haven't been through a tsunami. We all come back to the same, human experience. So go on.
It's a lot about the courage to let go. I want to say, like, there's the moment, but after the event is past, is the courage to let go and stop fighting it, because what happened. I mean, we cannot change it. It's beyond our control zone, right? And so it's really developing the courage to let this go and not like keep reviewing the past over and over again, right? And in this courage to let go, we kind of free ourselves from all those burdens. Now, I love this quote, and I say it a lot, but I really love it. Like, sometimes a beautiful gift come wrapped in ugly paper. That's so true. I can say with some perspective that this happened to me. It was kind of a blessing. It was horrible.
Would you mind, François, just saying that one more time? for the listeners, because I love this. You shared that quote with me and I love it. So please repeat that.
Sometimes beautiful gifts come wrapped in ugly paper. In the moment, you would have told me that, I would have punched you in the face. Let's be honest, right? And if someone is going through a really traumatic experience, this is really difficult to take the perspective and see that happen, right? In my life, I really apply that. Every time something bad is happening to me, technically there is nothing bad or wrong, right? It's just the interpretation that we have of a certain situation. But when something feels bad, I'm really thinking right now, you know what? I don't know how, but this is going to turn out for the better. This is going to help me somehow. And I trust the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that is going to help me in the future. And having this trust is helping to let go and say something good might come out of that. I don't know what, but I believe that it will. And that's such a powerful belief to have to go through life, right? Because that really helps you to let go of those things. Now, it doesn't take the pain away. This is something I really want to share, because sometimes it feels like there is this social script, or like this thing that you need to suffer for a certain amount of time, depending of the trauma you experienced. You know what I mean? Like you lose someone close, you need to suffer for 2 years. You lose your partner, you cannot remarry for like 2 or 3 years, depending. That's really strange, because a few months after this event, I was still having nightmares every night. I was still having this deep sadness in my body, but I allow myself to be alive again and to have joy again. Now, some people were asking me, how are you doing? Like, I'm doing okay. And I was thinking, maybe in their mind, they're like, oh, that must not have been too bad. Like, it feels like if you don't suffer for a certain amount of time, it makes the pain smaller, which has nothing to do with that. Pain and suffering are two different things. Pain is a signal that your body is giving you that something is wrong physically or mentally. Suffering is what you made out of this information. Now, suffering is a choice. You can say, I decide to not suffer. But somehow it feels like the longer you suffer, the bigger it makes the pain, which it's ridiculous. Right?
Oh, I love your distinction. Thank you for pointing that out, because I think maybe a lot of our listeners haven't thought of it in that context, where there is pain and then there is struggle. And if I may say, when you were talking about this, you said, I'm still feeling the pain. I'm still experiencing this thing. It reminds me of another thing that our mentor said, which was, there are two narratives in life, struggle and progress. And when I think about that every day, I think it doesn't mean that one is without the other, or that we have to get rid of one, or that it's automatic. The progress comes once the struggle is gone. These things live in tandem with each other. They're linked, right? And that's what you're describing here. And that's the thing that I think sometimes the messaging is, we must get rid of this. We have to get rid of this in order to experience that.
Yeah.
And so,
what I love? Yeah, what I love to look at is children. They have pain, they have a trigger, and then they fully express what they feel about it. And then they make the decision that makes the most sense. And so you see a kid being in a lot of pain, and they're like, okay, and they go play again. And that's it, because in that moment, what makes the most sense is to not stay with this feeling and hang to it, and like, I'm going to be a victim forever. And like, they let go. And somehow we knew how to do that, but we kind of forgot when we grew up. And then we're thinking so much about everything that, like, no, I resist what's happening. I don't want to accept it. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's really challenging to be able to do that for all the people who are going through trauma and are listening to this right now. I know it's really hard. Taking perspective is not easy, because we don't want to accept, right?
When I think about mastering perseverance, or mastering ourselves through struggle, mastering our stress, mastering our PTSD, however that is progressing for us, I think about what, again, this is our mentor. He's so brilliant in really providing these bits of wisdom for us. But he said that mastery isn't about achievement; it's about integration. And what you're talking about is an integration of how you can be better in the world, how you can. It's an integration of all these different things. And when we start to let go, we can start to bring in elements that we can integrate in our life to make it a better experience. And so as you're mastering your way through struggle, it isn't, again, that you're getting rid of it necessarily, but learning how to have a
Yeah.
relationship with it that is more
Exactly.
positive, right? And future focused, and also in the present. Am
Yeah.
I
If you trust
following?
that it can serve you, then it's okay. You can use it
Yes.
for something, right? And
Yes.
I think every time we go through a struggle, it's so important to reconnect to a why. Because if you don't, I mean, I didn't know my why, my purpose, whatever you call it. But in that day, that was this little girl. She was my why. And after, when everything started changing in my psychology, when I realized like I need to live, my purpose was to make the most out of it, get better at life, and inspire others. Right? If you see everyone who's been through a difficult experience, consciously or not, we connect to something bigger than ourselves, and that's what makes us push through and go forward. Right? I love
Yes.
this quote from Neil Donald Walsh, who said, "Your life is not about you. It's about everybody else whose life you touch and in the way in which you touch it."
That is beautiful.
Yeah. I read this quote and I can really relate to it, because when I went in this tree about to die, I didn't think of my future goals. I didn't think of where I was in my career. I just think about the nice experience I had in my life, the emotional experience, and the faces and the smiles of the people around me. So it really makes sense, right?
I
Our life
love
is
that.
not about
You
you.
know, it's you're moving, you're talking about going with the flow and also letting go. So you have
Yeah.
this really nice dance between
Mm.
learning how to go with the flow with whatever your struggle is, and
Yeah.
also learning to let go of the things
Yeah.
that maybe prevent you from being in the flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So, my listeners, I just want to ask you to think about that for a minute. We opened with the question, is it possible to experience trauma in a positive way? I believe yes. And I believe the research is pointing more and more to how we can do that. And with your story, you're really helping us take away some things. If you were sitting down with someone and they said, Francois, if I'm in the middle of this awful thing, what's what's one what's one thing or one principle that I can live by right now that can keep me out of this horrible misery that I'm experiencing?
I think I would talk about the choice that we have.
Mm,
We cannot choose what's happening to us, but we can always choose our state. We can choose the way we react to things. And having this extreme ownership about how you feel and about how you see life, it's it's a game changer. The moment you can realize that you can choose to experience something in suffering or in joy, or you can decide to let go the suffering and choose joy no matter what, you're invincible. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying I'm a professional at doing that. Obviously not. We all work in progress, right? But knowing that and proving it to yourself only once. In one day, you feel something like it's difficult, and you say, you know what? I know it's hard. Right now, I'm going to decide joy. I'm going to decide to. I love this quote also. Sorry. I look for joy and I find it everywhere.
oh,
Right. I love that so much. And I remember I don't remember which country, I was working in a park and I was telling that to myself, and over again, I was looking around and then seeing those beautiful birds and seeing kids playing with the ball, and then seeing an old couple holding hands in a bench. It's like, there's joy everywhere. And then you can just say the other way. I look for sadness and you find it everywhere too, because it's all part of it, right? There is
it is.
nothing, but it's all about how you condition your mind, what you choose to see. And once again, I want to go back to this idea of choice. It's a choice,
I
right?
love that. I love it. Listeners, whatever you're going through, ask yourself, what choice can I make today? And I love your example of, I see everywhere I go, I see joy everywhere. And priming your brain to actually see what it is you want to see is a huge, it's a habit, isn't it?
It's a habit.
Habit.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to
It's a
train
high
it.
performance
Exactly.
habit if we really want
It
to go
is.
there.
It is. And I
Yes.
think going with that is really taking the time to think your life through, like to really understand, what do I want? I think nowadays more and more we are disconnected to what we really want. I mean, if you see the rate of suicide or depression across the Western world, it's horrible to see. It keeps growing up. I think we detach more and more ourselves to what we want life to be for us. And we live by default the life that has been put upon us, like with the society, the culture, the parents, the family, the education, whatever. And so we don't really know what we want anymore. And so when we go through these periods of struggles, we feel lost and we feel like, I don't know, right? And this not knowing, this uncertainty, these doubts you could really go through that by taking the time to think through, how do I want my life to be? What is important to me, without being biased by everything around? And just knowing that it's helping you to move forward to something you really want. I think that's important. That's an exercise we should do at school. I don't understand why it's not in the educational system. We learn so many things that are not helping us to be good at life. There is a point that's missing somewhere. Let's not remake that, but definitely there is a problem. So
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
absolutely.
The sooner we can do that with kids, the better it is. Because some people, they do that when they're 50, 60 or whatever. It's never early enough to really think, what do I want out of life? And it doesn't have to be like, a lot of people, when I do this leader exercise in my coaching, what would you like your life to be, your perfect whatever? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's like, you don't need to know. How do you want to feel? If you can just describe those feelings, anything can can fill up, like the physical experience can be whatever it is. But if you're really after a feeling, if you don't know for sure that you want to live in this place with this amount of money and this people, whatever, if you know how you want to feel, it helps you to live more intentionally. And that's what we want. I think that's one of my biggest takeaway from this traumatic event is like, we have the choice. And the more you know how you want to live, the more you can live with intention. And if you can live with intention, you end up living a created life instead of a default life. And that's what is lighting us up.
And when you talked about that shift into your purpose to help more people, or to help people, this is what sparked your desire to help people by sharing your story and helping them get through their own struggles. And it's there's a passion there. You're now going into a feeling of joy, into passion. We can feel that through you. And that, I love that you pointed that out, because people can take away from this. The question, what feeling do I want to have? What feeling do I want to have? If I'm feeling miserable, what's the opposite of misery? Just start there. François, this has just been an amazing discussion. And I want to share my key takeaways really quickly, and then invite people to do the same, to come up with 3 things that you got from this discussion, this story, the obstacles that François overcame. And what I got from it is the courage to let go in circumstances that are beyond our control. And he talked about having a level of trust. And as difficult as that can be, he talked about some of the questions we can ask ourselves. And one is, well, first of all, knowing that we have a choice, and then asking ourselves, what choice can I make now to create a difference? He also, as we just mentioned, talked about changing our emotions. And so we have a choice to change our emotions from where we're at to where we want to be. And that can be a quick thinking exercise. But I want to point out that clarity isn't a thinking exercise fully. It is an engagement. And François and I, in the work that we do, we help you engage in a process that is more than just about thinking. It's what he said. It's about feeling. And we are humans. We all have emotions. And he opened the show talking about that inner conflict, those feelings that were coming up for him in a very traumatic situation. And the fact that he went with the flow, and he ended up becoming, and I will say hero, even though you don't like hearing it, he was a hero in that circumstance. And that is the difference. We can become heroes in our own life. Whether we want the accolades for it or not is really beside the point. It means we are being a contributing person in this world, helping others not just overcome, but literally survive. And so for that, François, I just want to thank you so much. And again, we opened with the question, what was I saying? Are there benefits to experiencing trauma? Is it possible to get through trauma in a positive way? Thank you so much. Is there anything that you can add? And also, please tell people where they can find you, because I want you to be a resource for my listeners.
Instead of waiting for something really difficult to do, to really embody this idea of I can choose, just start right now. After listening to this, just decide, what is the emotion that I want to have right now, right? It's so much easier to practice this in easier situation. When you wake up in the morning, you're fresh to start, clean slate, That's where you need to start. If you wait for being in a really difficult situation, it's going to be more challenging to do. So start now. You have nothing to wait, right? So that was the first thing I wanted to say. To contact me, you can contact me via LinkedIn or on my website. And yeah, I'm happy to have a chat with everyone and share and talk about this message. So thank you so much.
That is wonderful. I'm going to actually add your information to the show notes as well. So everybody pay attention to that and go to see François's work. And thank you so much for the work that you do in the world. You have inspired me. I know that you've inspired people out there. You make this show a success just by having the bravery, the courage to share that story and to move yourself, even though you're still experiencing some of that struggle, in a way of progressing forward. So I give you all the credit in the world for making this world a better place. And I look forward to our next show. We have another topic we're going to share. I'm actually not even going to bring it up yet. I'm just going to bring you back. Okay, François? It's a twist, but it's a great one. So we'll come back for that.
Amy, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share my message in front of the audience. I really appreciate that. Thank you again.
Have a great day.